she could die beside him. In the years she'd traveled alone around the world, she'd grown and realized she could live a full life without love or even company. She developed skills and learned to communicate in several languages. Surely she could handle the small-town people of Harmony. She'd left a few friends here, but she had never been a part of the town, and she wouldn't be now. All Ronny Logan wanted was a solitary nest to land in for a while. She needed the peace and calm of this place, not the people or the memories. Her soul was tired. She wanted time to think, not to dream or to remember, but to plan. It seemed that since the day she'd walked out of Dallas Logan's house 3 years ago, Ronny had been changing, growing, morphing into someone she never thought she'd be able to be. A tall, thin man in his 60s stepped out of the car and smiled at her in his polite way. "Welcome back, Miss Logan. I'm glad you're home." She took his offered arm and moved toward the Lincoln. "I expected the ladies at the bed and breakfast would have fattened you up by now, Mr. Carleone. A year with Martha Q and Mrs. Biggs, and you haven't changed a bit." "Oh, but I have. You won't believe the strange world I've stepped into since you've been gone. I've even taken up writing my memoirs. I'm thinking of calling it Adventures in Service." Mr. Carleone took 2 bags from Durwood and put them in the back of his polished car as he continued. "I followed your emailed instructions to the letter. I've told no one about your return, but there are lots of people in this town badgering me for news of you. When you're ready to make an appearance in public, they'll be waiting to welcome you. Until then, you'll have your silence." "I need time. For right now, I don't think I'm ready to see anyone." He nodded. He seemed to understand, although she half expected him to tell her that Marty Winslow would have wanted her to visit her friends. But Mr. Carleone would never be so presumptuous. The old man must be the last of a dying breed, the perfect butler, confidant, chauffeur, organizer. She had no doubt he could run the White House or Winter's Inn bed and breakfast with polished skill. "I thought that might be your wish." He grinned. "Even though I had the duplex you last lived in cleaned and made sure the best room at the bed and breakfast was available, I also leased a cabin out on Rainbow Lane. It faces a small lake, and it's not easy to get to, so that should be the perfect spot. There are walking trails, probably made by animals coming into water, a porch swing, and no one close enough to see your lights at night. I've stocked it with a few basics, but if you'll call me after you've settled in, I'll be happy to deliver whatever else you need." "Sounds perfect." Ronny let out a breath she felt like she'd been holding for days. "You're still taking care of me, aren't you, Mr. Carleone?" It had taken her a month into her trip to stop being surprised at the depth of details Mr. Carleone had covered. The hotels knew she liked a morning sun window, a shower, not a bath. Fruit was always delivered each evening along with maps and a suggested agenda for the next day. Mr. Carleone was doing what he did best, taking care of people. First, Marty Winslow, and now her. "Thank you for being so thoughtful." "Marty would have wanted me to. He gave me enough stock in his company over the years that I'll never have to work. I consider keeping up with you as my hobby. I've kept every postcard you've sent me pinned to a map on one wall of an office I rented downtown." He smiled as if confessing a secret. "I needed to have somewhere to go every morning. Hanging around the B&B wasn't an option. It was either cut my own throat to keep from eating all the cinnamon rolls each morning or find somewhere to go. Setting up an office within walking distance seemed the least violent solution." Ronny didn't have to ask why. She knew the owner of Winter's Inn and could guess. He opened the passenger door for her. "Where